May 5th, the Washington Post, which is at the heart of this thing, this is where the op-ed that we're discussing from the end of 2018 was published, decides to take a swing at how various folks on the internet are covering this. Now, what's interesting about this is multifaceted. The first of which is, as I said, Washington Post is one of the star participants in this story. The other is that, as you might gather from the kind of theming of today, we've got an ownership issue, just like we had with the New York Post and The Sun and Johnny Depp suing The Sun and Rupert Murdoch and News Corp and all that good stuff. The Washington Post is owned by Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos also owns Amazon and Twitch, which is, as you can see on the headline, what's being discussed here. And it's really, really interesting because we just talked about how I want to add good to the world. LawTube, I think, is doing that. You get the warm fuzzies from Nate's departure there, et cetera. And then you get the other take on this, right? That the media is looking at this and seeing exploitation, or at least wanting to frame it that way. So you get folks talking about XQC, who you may have seen me do videos on. I think I talked about him I think it's XQC, flouting the rules about broadcasting the Olympics and getting into a DMCA fight. If you're interested in that, I believe there's a Virtual Legality episode on it. But they frame it as over 100,000 viewers watch with him on his stream as Amber Heard's legal team argues that much of Johnny Depp's evidence should be dismissed because he, in their view, has admitted to abuse. Now, there's a couple of reasons I highlighted this sentence, one of which is I had to really think about what the Washington Post was talking about when they described this sequence this way, about throwing out evidence, dismissing evidence. I believe what they're mentioning here is the motion to strike / dismiss and the opposition to that. Is that, Alita, is that your best guess at what they're describing here in terms of this?
I think so, because that's the only time that we've heard of his evidence being potentially dismissed. Okay. In this case, so far.
So one, I wanted to point out, right? So you're doing an article about how other people are getting misinformation or otherwise not treating things properly. And the opening paragraph, I really had to struggle to be like, what are you describing here that matches up with what I have seen over the past 4 weeks? So that's it's a little shade. And then they want to get into the business here, right? So if you aren't familiar with Twitch, it's a little bit like YouTube, a little bit like Facebook gaming. It's me, right? It's zany, it's entertainment first. LawTube is not that. But you get the Washington Post describing, then they put up a clip from the 2013, God help me, it is 2013, action video game Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, in which the main character, Raiden, asks a corrupt senator to back up something he said with a source. My source is that I made it the F up. And it's like, okay, yeah, I can see how that would be funny in the context of some of this stuff, obviously taking more of a strongly worded position than I am. But you can see the framework that this is starting to use, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, serious thing. We're talking about abuse. We've set it up where this is very important. Rapt silence, et cetera, et cetera. And then, okay, now they're bringing up video game memes. Is that appropriate? The next paragraph, this sort of tonal ping-ponging is characteristic of many Twitch streams of the ongoing trial, and the trial is played out in the public eye thanks to a freely available YouTube stream of the proceedings as well as ample press coverage. So we start out with this really setting the framework for this is going to be something like a hit piece. And I apologize, my voice is going. Alita, what do you think as our YouTube star now when you see something like this put forth in the press?
I mean, it's already starting to look like people are using this for their entertainment value, and serious subject. People are making jokes, having fun, and it's going to be like, oh, let's talk about how these people are all terrible and using this for cheap entertainment.
I agree.
That's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, I agree. And the tough part about an article like this is like that's a good example of a problem some reasonable person might have with it. I have no doubt, having watched Twitch, there are undoubtedly people that aren't treating it with anything remotely like what I would consider the proper decorum.
Yes.
Right. And we make jokks on
do.
your stream, and we do. We react to things as they happen. Yeah. But I think ultimately, end of the day, everybody that's streaming this is going to get lumped into this particular position because this is in fact competitive to what these various publications are doing, and they want that kind of status. This is the way that you should have these news events interpreted, right?
And it's interesting that this is coming from the Washington Post because they're kind of in an awkward position throughout this entire trial too. So they're trying to be like, oh, this is a very serious subject. And, that article is very serious. And we put it out because we knew it was very serious. And, you know, and like, oh, but they're just trying to make light of it and make jokes of it. Okay, Washington Post. Okay.
Well, I mean, because they're in a position to say, we should be the guard posts of this, and we don't feel like they are doing it right. And to some extent, there's some accuracy there. I would say, yeah.
But at the same time, we also fundamentally have a belief that the public is able to come in and witness their judicial system, and people are free to comment on the judicial system. It is not up to the Washington Post to decide what people should think about our judicial system.
I don't disagree. And they actually do give voice to one of the Twitch streamers here. It says people are trying to learn more context about witnesses and statements and the American justice system in general, which I think is entirely fair. I might not go to my favorite personality-driven Twitch streamer first. I might go to Alita and Legal Bites first on that kind of thing. But, people find each other where they live. And then you do get, other references from this very same voice that says, we are actually joking about what you would expect, Amber Heard's stress and things like that, but also drug addiction and other serious topics. And that can rub people the wrong way. They do give another voice that says, hey, I use comedy and fast-paced conversations to diffuse tension and make Gen Z audiences and those with shorter attention spans pay attention to serious issues, because otherwise when it gets too serious, some people don't listen and they need to, maybe. And I want to give the Washington Post credit here because I framed it as a hit piece. It stays that way for the most part, but they do actually have multiple interviews that are talking about why they're doing what they're doing, and they don't sound insane.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
also, I mean, it's the other part of it too is, I've gotten some flack from folks about, using humorous meme merch on some stuff, like there are some people that just don't like the idea of selling meme merch at all. Part of it because it's, we've got jokes that are involved in it, and people think, this is a very serious case. How dare you? But at the same time, like we also need to be able to let off some steam while we are talking about these serious subjects. It just, you have to do it in a way that's hopefully appropriate and hopefully doesn't rub too many people the wrong way. But I mean, you talk to anyone who is a combat soldier that has been through all kinds of craziness, they come back and they've got a lot of humor about their situation very often. And I think that you'll find that with a lot of people that have been to hell and back, so that we are all experiencing this trial together, one way or another, regardless of whether people have come from DV history environments or not. We are all experiencing this trial together. And so there are parts of it that are horrifying. There are parts of it that are hilarious, and we're going through the whole thing together. So, the fact that we can also make jokes together, I think is a good thing, because it means that we are able to wrap our brains around the insanity that is some parts of this trial.
Yeah, honestly, Alita, I didn't know that you ever got any crap for Havoc or whatever. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just for the first trial, only a little bit, just a couple people, but for this trial, some people were talking about like, oh, you're profiting off of domestic violence and all of that kind of thing. But that's not the way that I see it. I see it as we are all experiencing something together. And in the same way that we share memes with one another to communicate our common experience, you can do that also with something tangible. And some people want that. So people have asked for it. So I've provided it.
Yeah.
So not to get too far down the hole of like defending my merch, but it's been an interesting kind of twist in the conversation. And I've really kind of thought quite a bit about it since then because of some of the commentary.
I literally didn't know it. So that is very interesting to me. I can see how somebody might come across it and be that way, but I think you're right. It's the nature of, it's a community. And hopefully we're learning and educating and entertaining at the same time, because I might not go as far as putting Metal Gear Rising clips anywhere. But yeah, you keep more attention with some of that entertaining quality. And I've said this in Virtually Legality. I've gotten, I guess, similar kind of concepts, predominantly when I go on other channels. Like, how could you talk to that person? How could you have this conversation? And I say, well, look, if you think that this message is good, if you think I'm good at talking about it, if you think that LawTube's a good thing, if you think understanding trials is a good thing, there is value in communicating with folks that might not realize that, or with, for merch, providing a sense of community for what you think is good information going out there, and you know, making people understand things better. So that's interesting to me, just because I didn't know it. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing it with me. I had no idea.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.